Who are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dynasty sleepers that you want to target before the NFL draft? That's what we're going to talk about today on the Audible. And we're going to bring up some names that moved, changed zip codes, area codes, Sigmund, but we're also going to
Yeah.
bring up some names that, well, you should have already been collecting anyway, because they're just waiting for their opportunity. But let's talk about the opportunity that possibly could be there in Indianapolis with Daniel Jones. Yes. Daniel Jones, a dynasty sleeper to target.
Yeah, because remember, we're playing fantasy football. This isn't about will Daniel Jones be a long-term starter in the NFL. What this is about is will he have value, maybe more value than the market is contemplating. And remember, Daniel Jones is a runner. Daniel Jones can break off chunk plays in the running game. Daniel Jones, early in his career, he was connecting with Darius Slayton a lot on deep passes. And we know from how the Colts have set up Anthony Richardson that they're fine with a vertical passing game and they're fine with letting their quarterback run by design. So they bring in Daniel Jones on a $14 million 1 year deal to compete with Anthony Richardson. And reality is, I don't know that the Colts want Anthony Richardson to win this. I wonder if the Colts at this point have emotionally moved on from Anthony Richardson, but they have to play it out. And this was the best competition they could bring in. Daniel Jones is looking to rekindle interest around the NFL. So I think that in a straight up quarterback competition in camp, the kinds of things that quarterback competitions in camp are based on, Daniel Jones will probably win.
Well,
So go ahead.
and let's talk about that as well, Bloom, because it's not only that Daniel Jones could win in said competition, it's also is Anthony Richardson going to stay healthy? It's the one problem. The physical skill we've always praised, the
Right.
work ethic that he has, we've always praised. I personally think the Colts are wasting their time with Anthony Richardson because he's just not developed as a passer and he's showing no steps of getting there as a passer. He's a great athlete. He's got a big arm. Fine. That's, a lot of great athletes with big arms that can't play. And I'm not saying that Daniel Jones is, he's not great, Bob, but as he looks to rekindle things, it's the competition and then it's Richardson just staying healthy. Availability is a skill, and Anthony Richardson hasn't yet shown that skill.
Yeah, that's been a problem, self-preservation. And then the other thing is how hard it is to really devote yourself when you know that your organization doesn't have your back. When
Right.
you know
Right.
that ownership, when you know that the coaching at this point, I think, I just don't think this team and this quarterback is going to work out. So that means there's opportunity for Daniel Jones to produce surprising fantasy value this year.
Who's on the other side and who's catching passes from a Daniel Jones. They got a lot of talent there in Indianapolis, and well, we'll see what kind of opportunity they have as Jacksonville still tries to figure things out there. And of course, Houston sits atop that division. Again, fantasy football, Bloom. I think that's the lens we kind of have to look at this from.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting division with turnover, Jacksonville, Liam Cohen, with Houston rebuilding their offensive line. And I don't think this division, like, okay, Tennessee was terrible last year, but the margins are not very wide. We've seen the AFC South be a worst to first division. So Daniel Jones could be, wouldn't it be funny if Daniel Jones again leads the team to a surprise playoff berth, gets a big contract, and ruins the team's next few years?
Yeah, yeah, we'll see about that. Let's also see about Kansas City as they've got Elijah Mitchell there now to carry some of the load. And here's the thing, speaking of availability, Isaiah Pacheco, love you, bro. Can't stay healthy, right? And didn't they bring back Kareem Hunt as well,
Yeah.
right? Top of my head. So you've got Pacheco, talented, can't stay healthy. Kareem Hunt, he's all right. And then Elijah Mitchell now, the new guy there. And you suggest, Bloom, target him in Dynasty before the draft.
Yeah, because he was an afterthought. Because he was probably on your waiver wire. We don't even think about Elijah Mitchell anymore, but the Chiefs were thinking about Elijah Mitchell. And I don't know if he could produce in this very limited running game, but he has long speed. And we're talking about somebody that is on your dynasty waiver wire and could be leading the backfield of a productive offense in touches. Because, like you said, with Pacheco, and the question with Pacheco is this going to be one of those situations with his ankle where he's not quite the same? They got some work out of him at the end of the year, but you wonder if they would have been better off just letting him completely heal before he took the football field again. Like you said, Kareem Hunt, he's just a stopgap at this point. Now, with every team, with every single team, basically, we're going to say they could draft a running back. And really, even running backs that are fourth, fifth round running backs in this draft going to being the best running back in at least the Chiefs backfield. A lot of backfields, mid-round running backs in this year's draft are going to be better than a typical draft. So there's that caveat, but you can get Elijah Mitchell for a song, and he might sing in this offense with this team wanting to establish the run.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to go back at you with, Bloom, is like, how much of that is their impetus this year of, okay, all right, as they continue to work through receivers. And the funny thing is with Kansas City, they're down. For 2 years they've been down, and they've won a Super Bowl, and they've been to the Super Bowl. I would love that. Like, hey, things aren't going real well. I just made $1 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, that's Kansas City, but will they stylistically change a little bit? And with a trio of backs, I mean, if all those guys are healthy, I'm not saying Mahomes doesn't have to pass or he's a QB2 for fantasy, but like, yeah, Andy Reid, you could do quite a bit with those three backs if they're healthy.
That's the difference between Kansas City and a team like, say, Detroit, where Kansas City really is aiming to win games 20-17, 17-13, and they're not a team that has the capability or even has the desire to run up the score. See, so I think it's going to be really interesting on your beat. It is a Broncos show that if you look at the Broncos, the Raiders, the Chargers, the Chiefs, they're all built to win low scoring street fight, physical battle kind of games. At this point, it's not going to necessarily be great for fantasy football, but it will be great for people with like the old school trenches.
Yeah. Old school is what it looks like for Minnesota. Although with the new kid, Jordan Mason there, Aaron Jones retained. Interesting choice that they made there with the UTEP two-step. And so Minnesota, we're not trading JJ McCarthy. Really? I mean, we're not getting Aaron Jones. How bad? Aaron Jones, sorry. Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
How bad is Aaron Rodgers when a team has to get it out there like, we want a veteran quarterback, not him?
Yeah.
But anyway, Jordan Mason is there, a guy I know you appreciated with the 49ers, and certainly a fresh start behind a more veteran back, and maybe the future of the Vikings at the running back position is one Jordan Mason.
And maybe not behind, really, at least in terms of fantasy value, because you put together the steps here before free agency, before the second round RFA tender was applied to Jordan Mason by the 49ers. He was going in the 190s of early underdog drafts. So it looks like the fantasy football community saw Jordan Mason ball out in place of Christian McCaffrey, and they just looked at it as a next man up kind of situation. Maybe because Isaac Guerendo, who was going ahead of Jordan Mason a few rounds earlier in those early underdog drafts, maybe because Isaac Guerendo also produced. But Isaac Guerendo produced on some chunk plays, on some work in the passing game. Jordan Mason was outstanding after contact, adding a physical edge to this running game. Very efficient. Obviously, his running style meshed with the running game in San Francisco. And there were a lot of hints that around the league, he was seen in a much better light than the fantasy football community saw him. And then, sure enough, the Vikings are willing to give him a 2-year, $12 million contract. And yeah, it's just third day draft capital, but still they were willing to give some draft capital to add him. So now, not that Aaron Jones has Jahmyr Gibbs kind of game, but they're looking over to Detroit and they see that 1-2 punch in the backfield. It's funny that I mentioned Detroit as a team that runs up the score because they just want to eliminate automatic first downs for holding and illegal contact penalties. So, this is a team, Detroit, that has created a blueprint where Jordan Mason is that David Montgomery back. He's going to get the short yardage carries. He's going to get the carries to grind out wins. And you look at how Michigan handled J.J. McCarthy. And remember, he didn't get to have any live reps in the regular season. He didn't get to practice during the regular season. So he's really a rookie. This is kind of like what we talked about with Anthony Richardson, right? It was his rookie year and his second year. So it would make sense for Minnesota that had a lot of trouble with the run. They also signed Will Freeze and Ryan Kelly away from Indianapolis to rebuild that internal offensive line. So this is a team that is going to focus on the running game. And Aaron Jones is not a player at this point in his career that you want to give more than 15 or 18 touches in a game. Jordan Mason has a lot of tread left on his tires. And he is the fact that they set out a goal to get him. And see, so I'm not even talking about this year. Remember, it's a 2-year, $12 million deal. I think you could see Jordan Mason leading the backfield in a very good Vikings offense next year. So that's just not being priced into his value.
Yeah, price it into the value and make sure you're getting Jordan Mason on your dynasty teams. Probably already should have had, as we move from guys that move to guys that are there. Should have already been on Jalen Coker. And honestly, we're only doing 5 today, Sigmund, but we
Yeah,
could do 25,
sure.
55.
How
Like,
much time you got?
exactly. We don't have a lot of time, but let's talk about Jalen Coker, a player that all fantasy GMs out there and dynasty wise, you should be collecting it. As Carolina, again, we'll continue to see Bryce Young. We're excited about that young man and the way it clicked for him, dude. That's what
Yeah,
I'm really, I'm almost in a way kind of proud of him. You know what I mean? Because you could have folded like a lawn chair.
yeah.
All that pressure. Hey, you kind of suck. You're a bust. No, Jalen Coker's helping out Bryce Young, and Bryce Young will then help out Jalen Coker.
Yeah, just to tie Bryce Young back to the Anthony Richardson story. That's what Anthony Richardson needs to do
Yep.
because Bryce Young, first half of the season, folks were reading Dave Caminalis's words and the vibes that he seemed out on Bryce Young, and it seemed like the organization was out on Bryce Young, and he brought them back in. But that's where Anthony Richardson sits, and that's where Bryce Young got to, and with some help from Jalen Coker and Adam Thielen. And in so much as there was a change in the situation for Jalen Coker, it's that Adam Thielen decides not to retire. They sweeten the pot a little bit for Adam Thielen to come back, and Adam Thielen, another undrafted free agent, another unlikely success story. Although Jalen Coker did get 200,000 plus guaranteed, so the Panthers knew that he was a priority UDFA. But he took him under his wing. You can see that connection. What a wonderful guy to learn from for Jalen Coker to get the finer points of the wide receiver position. Now we'll see if they go ahead and draft, I don't know, Ted McMillan. I think they're sitting at 8. That might be a little early for him. This is a wide receiver class that doesn't really have an alpha type. There's debates about whether McMillan's a number 1 or not. He's not Drake London. Okay, let's put it to that. So that's where Drake London went in the draft 8. It just shows you how comparatively this isn't a great draft class. We'll have a lot of time to talk about that in April. My point is that Jalen Coker should have an opportunity to emerge as at least the top downfield target, if not a primary target. I know Xavier Legette had some surgery in the offseason. So I think that Coker still has everything lined up for him. We watched the dust settle in free agency. Not that there were that many wide receivers to go after, but the Panthers didn't make any big meals at wide receiver. They bring back Adam Thielen, who's going to teach Jalen Coker the ropes. And he's already looked like the best downfield receiver on the Panthers as an undrafted free agent rookie. We only have up to go from here.
Yeah, up to go from here. And waiting. I think it was Eric DaCosta who said about Mark Andrews, like, I think he'll have an outstanding year in 2025. I don't think he said it was with Baltimore.
Yeah.
So we're kind of waiting. But here's the thing with this draft class of tight ends coming out, which is magnifique. I don't know which is better, the defensive tackle class, the tight end class, or the running back class. Probably running backs. But either way, with that class coming in, your trade value for Mark Andrews is probably not great, Bob. I think it's twice I've said that in the show. So I'll move on and talk about Isaiah Likely again, a player that we've talked about since he came into the league, a player that's been waiting for his opportunity, a player that's flashed when he's gotten an opportunity, big time player, tight end one. So do what you can, and then we'll wait to see what happens with Mark Andrews if he moves or if just Likely takes over this year.
Yeah, this is a moment, and not many things broke in Isaiah Likely's favor in free agency. They signed DeAndre Hopkins. They do pick up the $4 million roster bonus for Mark Andrews. Not that that was really a question, but you do have Ravens beat writer saying, hey, if a legit offer, I think that was the word, a legit offer. It was Jeff Zerbiak of the Athletic saying, if the legit offer comes in, like you said, Cease, with this class, I don't know if we'll get a legit offer. Maybe it's an offer that you get closer to the trade deadline. Maybe it's an offer that you get closer to the regular season during training camp, preseason, when teams see what they have. Or maybe they go into the season with Mark Andrews playing out his last year with the Ravens. And we also were going to have Isaiah Likely heading into free agency. So what happens? It's possible that Isaiah Likely breaks the bank somewhere. It's possible that the Ravens bring him back as a cornerstone of this offense without having to share targets with Mark Andrews. But he's getting into the prime of his career. And I think that Isaiah Likely is a classic player. We've seen this over the years in fantasy football, that the only reason he doesn't have more production is he's not getting more opportunity, but he's getting to that part of his career, whether it's the Ravens that pay him or another team, that they're going to want to get their money's worth. So if you trade for Isaiah Likely now, even if you overpay for him by today's value, you have a player with remember, he came into the league as a weapon. He came into the league as an offensive weapon, and immediately in his first training camp and preseason, the Ravens said, wow, this guy can block too. And of course, they're the Ravens. They love to run the ball. So that got him on the field right away. But you've seen him, including in the season opener last year, be able to take over a game as a downfield target from tight end position. So Isaiah Likely is potentially the next answer to who's going to be a perennial top 5 fantasy tight end, even though it's probably not going to happen this year. That means this is your buying opportunity.
This is the buy time. I like that. Get ready to go and purchase and access things for your dynasty teams. We are here for you. We are the Audible. It's our 20th season of the Audible. So we appreciate you because we're some chatty blankety blankers. Sorry, Joe. Get your Sorry Joe t-shirt at the footballguys.com shop. Either way, we're here for you. On the Couch's return, Sigmund. So I know your draft guests are going to be off the chain. By the way, we'll have to save the Tet McMillan talk for a little bit later because I think he might be better than Drake London. That's another conversation we could have, right? So yeah, man. Coming soon to a podcast near you. We are the Audible. Follow Sigmund Bloom on X, Twitter X, at Sigmund Bloom. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I'm at Cecil Lamming. The show is at the Audible, saying, watch the videos that may or may not pop up at the end of the show. Stay tuned, and would you please, as always, stay frosty, baby.